everything that goes wrong with aluminum Mercedes engine blocks. So today we're going to talk about all the problems that can go wrong specifically with aluminum V8 engine Mercedes blocks, and we're going to talk about the cylinder heads too a little bit so that you guys know what to do in case you ever have to do something like pull a cylinder head, or you jump a timing chain or whatever. So I think that the main focus here is going to be the M116 3.8 and 4.2 liter engine, the M117 5 liter and 5.6 liter engine, and the M119 4.2 liter 5 liter, and if you have AMG versions of any of these engines, 5.4 and 6 liter engines. So anyway, so these engines have 4 areas where you really need to be careful. And of course the first one is the timing chain. I can't stress this enough. If you've just bought a 560 SL or 500 SL or 380 SL, even if it is super low mileage, pull your valve covers and check your timing chain. Why is that? Well, it's because even on cars that have double row chains, when the chains get loose and sloppy, they can jump. And if this happens, then you get to pull your cylinder heads. So let's fast forward. Let's say you have to pull your cylinder heads either because the car's valve guides are worn out, or a valve guide is lost and gets loose in the head, or because you've jumped your chain and all your valves are bent. What do you do next? Well, the easiest solution to this problem is to pull the heads and valve job the engine. That means you're changing the guides, you're checking the valve seats, you're replacing whatever valves are worn out or close to worn out, because you don't want the valve to get into worn out territory as soon as you put 10,000 miles in the car, But something else has to happen when those heads come off. And this really depends on the level of skill of your machinist and your even yourself, and what tools you have, and what kind of conditions you're working under. So if all of your threads in your cylinder block are okay and you don't have the ability to put helicoils in the block when the head bolts pull out, don't do it. Don't touch it if you don't have that ability. If you don't have the resources or the time or the skill or whatever, don't do it. But if you're working with a qualified machinist and you could pull the engine out, or you could actually order the helicoils for the head bolts from Mercedes and have all, I think it's 32 helicoils put in your cylinder head bolts. Don't just do the bad ones. If you have the ability, do all of them. Now, some people like to use time certs for this job. I don't care too much for using time certs, just because you end up sacrificing more material on your block. And these silicon aluminum blocks do not weld up very well. Just something to think about. Now, another scenario where you can end up with a major headache on your Mercedes V8 is the water pump. Now, there's one long bolt that goes through the water pump, through the timing case into the engine block, and you could probably see it holding on the oil filter tube. Now, this bolt, because it's an 8mm wide bolt, it can occasionally snap off. And this happened to me once. So if you have a higher mileage car where the cooling system has not been taken care of, you should probably be real careful with it. Give it a few blows with the hammer before removing it. Maybe remove it, after taking all the other bolts out, and then tapping on the water pump just to de-stress it a little bit. Now, 2 other things that can go wrong in these engines. The first one, and this is more common on aluminum engines, is that the backs of the head gaskets can leak oil. And this can happen as early as 30,000 miles in a 560 SL, or around 80,000 miles in a 420 SEL. Why does this happen? Well, simply because the head gaskets deteriorate and the oil starts to leak through the head gasket, and the gasket becomes porous. You're usually not going to get an out-and-out head gasket failure, so you can take your time planning a repair. But it's really not something that you should put off forever, because eventually oil will start to get all over the exhaust, and it really stinks to drive the car. Another place that these engines leak oil that can be a real pain is from the rear seal on the crankcase. This seal covers up the crankshaft the end of the crankshaft where it attaches to the transmission. When you're putting the seal carrier in, you're supposed to use some kind of sealant, whether anaerobic or RTV, but you only use a little bit, because if you use too much, then it will get into the cam oiler tube passages. So that's the one thing I'd worry about. This causes an oil leak sometimes that a lot of people just can't figure out in these motors. And of course, you know, if you check your timing chain regularly and use clean oil, they're usually fine. So even for 200,000 miles or more. All right, so if you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe. Please tap the bell for notifications and give me a thumbs up. And if you think that you have an intelligent piece of information to add to this whole thread, leave a comment below. That's why I enable my comments. And in the meantime, take great care of your Mercedes. If you do small maintenance tasks, you won't have to do big repairs. So there we go. See you next time.